Superintendent Alex Zamora. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for making the time. I know it's a working day for you. You are the superintendent of the Wilder School District,
Yep.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Great. You have Joey Palmer, the assistant superintendent for Valley View, came on, and we had a great conversation about tech and what Valley View School District's relationship with is it, and Joey's individual relationship coming from the classroom to the administration, and just about how they're trying to massage it out, because I think everybody dumped tech onto public schools, and great, especially in the last 5 years, people were really trying to make sure everybody had access. But now there's this understanding of, hey man, there's likely too much tech here. First, it started with personal tech devices. We call them cell phones, but they're really just personal computers. Then Joey recognized that, hey, even when we took those away, if you had 5 kids that were a problem on their cell phones, those same 5 kids are now a problem on their school computers.
Totally.
And so they've started doing, I believe it's 1 or 2 days a week at the different levels of school where it's like, hey, look, we're going no tech, right? We're going like 2010 style, just however you were teaching in 2010, just do that just for 1 day. And let's see what the results are. Let's see what behavioral outcomes we get. Let's see what academic outcomes we get. Let's start massaging it out. He brought up your school district as one that had really jumped into national prominence and at least briefly part of the national conversation about tech and this tech integration in the late teens. Tim Cook and Melania Trump did in fact travel to Wilder, Idaho to help, usher in this area of tech integration. And like all these kids are going to be super geniuses and they all are going to have these great tablets and these, tech devices. And we're going to, use them to engage in drills and they're going to be geniuses. And that didn't actually play out. Joey mentioned that you're working really hard to, bring curriculum back and work on academic outcomes. Talk to me about what has happened in Wilder in the last decade.
Totally. Well, let me start with a little background.
Pull this just a tad bit. There we go.
All right. Let me start with a little background if I can. Please. So Wilder School District is about, 50 miles west of Boise.
Sure.
It's 12 miles outside of Caldwell, west of Caldwell. And that 12 miles for many of our families may as well be 100 miles because certainly there's no public transportation. There's limited access to multiple cars, just the gas is expensive. And it's a hard working community. You talked about, you made the comment about the kiddos. It wasn't quick geniuses. I would say our kiddos are smart. They're innovative. And we're really leaning into that. Our school board has been very involved for a lot of years, and including in the initial, movement to move more towards tech a decade ago or however long ago, but it was before my time with Wilder. But really the idea was Wilder, just I listened to Superintendent Critchfield on here.
Yes.
She talked about how, just poverty is one of those things. You look at poverty levels, and that it does have an impact on academic outcomes.
Sure.
And so we have high poverty and we have lower academic outcomes. And so our school board has thought outside of the box and has been able to think outside the box and explore technology. I think when we think about technology, it often is looked at as something that could equalize processes, how it could equalize experiences for kiddos like those in Wilder to have the same opportunities as those in West Ada in the Boise School District. And so what I've seen with technology is it kind of it's like all or nothing type of deal anymore. It's let's throw everything at it and see what works. And I think Wilder, we didn't see the gains over the years. I've been with Wilder for 6 years, so I wasn't there when Tim Cook and Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka, excuse me, not Melania.
Yeah.
Ivanka.
Visited Wilder, but I definitely worked there during the time where we were really focused on the use of technology. When I first started, the approach was technology was kind of the mediator of the education, right? It was the tool that was working with the students, and the teachers came alongside and were serving as mentors. They were coming and supporting. They were cheerleaders. They were helping fill gaps.
More like guides. They're guiding them through this educational process that is fundamentally being delivered on a piece of tech.
Yeah. And that's great, right? Like we were willing to try things. The board and the administration at the time was willing to try things, and the teachers got alongside of it. But to the point that you made earlier, what we saw was that our data wasn't going up. We continued to have those same gaps. And so when I started with the school district, I actually started as the virtual education person during COVID. During that 2021 school year, I came in to help with the virtual education because we still had kiddos that were home. And then the second year, I moved into the elementary. And so as the elementary principal, I looked at that and I said, the data is not showing the growth that we need it to show. Our kiddos deserve that same academic experience that any other kids
Sure.
are entitled to. And so I really wanted to focus on that. So we started pulling away from leaning into the technology and saying, how can we go back to the traditional practices to a certain extent? And I want to be clear, actually, towards the front is I am not in opposition of technology in education.
Sure.
And so that's certainly not the approach that I'm taking, and that's not the approach that I will be taking. But what I want to recognize is that technology is a tool, and we have to use it as a tool and not as the teacher. And I think that's where we need to, where we in Wilder really needed to figure that out. It's the hammer, not the carpenter, right? It's the person it is the teacher that has the skill set, that has the training, that has the knowledge and the empathy to work with the kiddos and understand where they're at. And so we really needed to embrace that experience for the kiddos. So we, in the elementary, started pulling away and having whole group instruction again, right? The traditional, like using high quality research-based curriculum. And in doing that,
May I ask a question? When you say started pulling away, so what was the state of at let's say peak with tech integration?
Totally.
And by the way, I couldn't agree with you more. I have students that go. A couple of my students go to a no tech charter school, which I very much enjoy, and one of my kids at least is old enough to understand how to do like video editing. They're old enough to understand these other things that I'm totally happy to teach them with. One is very, very much a STEM based individual. I anticipate he will need a TI-84 very soon here. Texas Instruments. By the way, dude, we should have invested in Texas Instruments. Like that was the play. You know what was so amazing about Texas Instruments? You cannot buy when I was in high school, and probably when you were in high school, TI-84s cost I think like $110, right? It was like mid to late 1990s, right? Now, you know how much a TI-84 is? It's still $110.
oh wow,
Even though you could do everything. Like this is ancient technology. You want to know why? Because they're in the textbooks. Casio makes a graphing calculator. It's $25. You can get it in multiple colors, none of just the grayscale, dumb TI-84 gray, right?
Yeah.
You could get it all kinds of different things, but no one knows how to use it. And the TI-84s are actually written into the pre-calculus trigonometry calc book. So it's like they're an American institution. You can't teach calc in the US without like the TI-84 model. So anyway, but like that's technology.
Totally.
That's the screwdriver. That's the hammer. That's whatever. It hasn't, that nobody said, hey, take this TI-84 and learn calculus. They said, you need this because I'm going to teach you calculus, and this is a tool by which you're going to be able to engage in these other things. So couldn't agree with you more there. But going back to when you say you start pulling back, what was the level of tech integration in Wilder when you guys decided, hey, man, maybe we should let's start parsing this out and pulling back a little bit.
It was pretty involved. And by involved, I mean the technology was pretty involved. Most of our tools and our curriculum was on the iPad. So the teachers were on the back end looking at the data, facilitating and kind of recalibrating where students were placed on things. But that was where the extent was. And so if we're teaching a concept, let's say it's a third grade concept and I'm the third grade teacher, I would have to teach that third grade concept to 20 kids sitting in my classroom individually.
Sure.
As opposed to that traditional practice is where this is the third grade content standard. I'm going to teach everybody this, and then I'm going to enrich for the kiddos that are above it or understand it, or I need to pull up and come alongside the kiddos that need a little bit more help. And so it allows for more, it allowed the teacher. Before it was a little more challenging because the teachers had to do things 20 times or however many times there was.
When they were on the iPad?
Correct.
So with heralding in this unique student-centered curriculum, they're like, because we have the capacity to customize every aspect of this lesson, we are going to ask our teachers to customize this lesson to each individual student and then execute, as in like just hit play, and then each of the 20 kids get these individual customized things that presumably it's like, okay, here we go. Now everybody's winning.
Totally. And again, the idea is pretty cool, right? Like it's awesome. But again, I think that what we miss is that relationship piece, right? We miss that collaboration amongst the peers. So when I'm teaching a third grade concept, if I teach it to the whole class, everybody hears it at the same time. As a teacher, I still have the responsibility to individually support those kiddos. But instead of teaching that big topic 20 times, I can teach it one time and then come around and support the kiddos individually. And so it just also took up a lot of time from the teachers to be able to hit those big standards that we have to hit for the whole classroom. And that was one of the challenges. So there was no whole group instruction as a result of that, right? So it was all individual. And again, in theory, that sounds awesome. In practice, it was a challenge because there's only so much amount of time that the teachers have with the kiddos.
Right.
And so if I go around and this kiddo just needs extra help, I haven't taught maybe this core standard to this other kiddo because I haven't been able to get to them yet. Not that they're not working, they're working on something else. But again, it's kind of spinning one's wheels there. And so in the elementary, that's what I was able to work with as the principal and make changes for that building. I was able to pull it back, and we received a curriculum, or we adopted a curriculum, and we were able to engage in that whole group instruction. And what we saw over those few years when I was principal, that was about 4 years, a gain of about 20% in our IRI scores. That's the early reading indicator. Because the teachers were able to share that information. Kids were all exposed to the content level standards at their appropriate grade level, and the teachers were able to come alongside. And so I think that was one of the things that we did differently. And so now as superintendent, I became superintendent in August, really looking at how can we engage in that K through 12. We're a small district, so we can be nimble. We can be more nimble than some of these bigger districts because we're smaller. And so, but we're able to engage in some of those conversations. And what I was able to, when I've reflected on some of the gains that we've made in the middle school and high school over the last year, because that we haven't transitioned until this past year to a more classic model of teaching in the upper grades and that secondary grades. What I was seeing was we kind of maintained kind of flat line in regards to maybe it's a little wavy, our data, but not bigger gains. So last year to this year, we definitely saw some pretty good gains in growth. We still have room to grow. Our kiddos still deserve more opportunities to engage.
Sure.
But when we look at the growth, we see the kiddos working hard. We see those teachers working hard. And so as I was driving here this morning, I was thinking, what's that about? And I think it really emphasized the point that I wanted to make is that the technology is the tool. When we, unfortunately, in Wilder have had a lot of turnover in that secondary building. And so this year is the first year where we had is that true? Yeah, no teaching turnover in the last year. And so we were able to see some gains. And I think it speaks to the human is the person that needs to be involved. Because if it was consistent, if the technology was the miracle,
right.
We've had that technology for 10 years. It wouldn't matter who was teaching it. But when we had that, all those years of turnover that occurred, and our scores still weren't going up, and the constant was the technology, then we need to really look at what we need to change. And the change was, let's have the constant be the staff. And so in having that consistency with the staff, and having consistency of the staff engaging in high quality evidence-based research practices, education's not new. There are practices, there's best practices out there, and they continue to evolve, and we need to continue to evolve with it. But sometimes we put the cart before the horse. And I think this was an instance where if we throw all the technology without the teacher, then that might be putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah. And thank you for all of that. And when I moved here, so from the week I graduated college until the day I moved here, all I did was private education. Mm-hmm. Love teaching, love students, love helping people, especially, students that are in that 16, 17, 18-year-old range that are going off to college. There's, again, the elementary kids have their own thing. Middle school kids, like super snarky, they smell like they have their thing. And then, again, we all have our different areas of preference when we're teaching content. But I thought when I moved here, I'm like, oh, maybe this will be like I move out of the private education model and like take on, like an actual classroom with like 25 people, and somebody opens a school that happened to be my former neighbor. I'm like, oh, this sounds great. Until I found out that it was much more of the guide model, where it's like there is no direct instruction. There's a lot of iPad time. They're learning math, for instance, off of like Khan Academy. Like they have a couple different platforms that you can learn math off of, and grammar and all these things. And then the teacher, quote, would be somebody just kind of guiding these individual education journeys. And I was like, this doesn't interest me at all. Not that it's a bad model or like they're bad people, or I'm sure kids are learning, better, worse. I have no idea. But for me, it was like, listen, I got into teaching because I like helping people. Like I like teaching. I love having like I had all these like ridiculous comic bits that's just like, totally. Like you iron it all out and you know how to like, make fun of yourself and make fun of the content and like poke at, certain people. And you have this dynamic that it's like that brings people to the table in a different way where they're like, okay, yeah, math is annoying, but like this is actually kind of fun, right? And not a gamification of math, which is, you know, what a lot of people think. They're like, let's just make it entertaining. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but the games largely just become this addictive thing in themselves. Maybe, you know, I did see one a while back that really helped with multiplication tables, right? And it was on Prodigy Math or something. When I had, and again, for a tool, very, very specific tool. If my middle son got really, really good at it, and his multiplication tables, addition and subtraction stuff too, got really fast. And it was like, awesome. So there is, you know, like flashcard multiplications or little things like that, 100%. But he's not learning all of math on this one mechanism. And by the way, it became a real problem because as it was a game and as it offered this infinite, never-ending thing, he wanted to be on his iPad playing this thing all the time. You can make the argument that there's benefit there. Yeah, maybe he was getting slightly better at these you know, fundamental things, but he was good enough to move on in math. He was good enough to start engaging in different concepts. But then we'd have these screaming matches, not, you know, don't scream with the fourth grader, but like we'd have these big arguments and this turmoil in our house because he wanted the game aspect of it. And he didn't care about making progress anymore in math. He cared about playing the game, you know? And so again, you can, if done correctly, human to human interaction can bring people to the table and make the difficult task a tolerable thing if it's done in a manner that again, inserts enjoyment, but it's like a joyful burden. This is not a game like it is hard, but we're going to laugh about how hard it is, or like we're going to make fun of it, or like we're going to laugh about when am I ever going to use this? Like, ha ha ha, I've never heard that before. But it's that kind of thing.
Well, and I think you make a couple good points there. I think to your point, it is a tool and we need to use it strategically, just like we would use any tool.
Yes.
I can't use a hammer for everything. But moreover, I think part of the art of teaching, right? There's science behind teaching, but there's also an art behind teaching is the apps or the games are pretty stagnant. So that's going to be the same game if you like that idea or not. But when you're teaching and you have the art, that's where you can customize the ideas and the concepts around it. I still remember to this day my algebra teacher in 9th grade talking about I actually grew up in Wilder.
Look at you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wilder, and so we have a high Latino population. And so he would always, when he was talking about grouping, he would talk about Familia Zamora versus Familia Garcia, you know, when they go to a barbecue, and then how do you combine them? And so he used these ideas and concepts that were relevant to me that you can't customize games like that we buy, you know, they're a product, right? We don't have that opportunity to customize it. And I think that's where the art comes in, where you have the opportunity as the teacher, as the educator, to bring those ideas and concepts to a level that are interesting to the kiddos. That's the challenge, right? If it was easy, we wouldn't have to do this. But we do have to do this, and we get to do this, and we have the responsibility rather to make sure that we are reaching each kiddo where they're at and really bringing them up to the levels that they deserve to be at when they graduate.
There's a broader concern I have that I would like your opinion on it. I'm worried specifically about two things. One, that unless you've been a teacher or spent time in a classroom, and we've all spent time, let's make the assumption that everybody has spent time as a student, but unless you've spent time in a classroom as a teacher, it's like, okay, you know, your perspective will likely be limited. You've had one side of the equation, having both is better, right? And then you also have a tech industry that is dying to get the billions and trillions of dollars we spend on education. Now, this is a world that has largely been dominated by like Parsons or whatever the textbook, you know, maker is. Fine, whatever. And you buy these textbooks and you move on, and, you know, you have the old math with like the notes drawn or whatever it is, right? But the tech world is capable of making a very compelling sales pitch. It's going to be individualized. Every student is going to be taken into account. We're going to modify problem by problem. It's teachers and standardization of teachers is a thing of the past. We are going to have the best, you know, customized education experience ever. Just turn on the tablet, just turn it on. And in doing that pitch, if you've never been in the classroom and experienced it firsthand, you're like, okay, well, that sounds great, right? If you've been in the classroom, you experience the problems that you articulated, which is like, yeah, but you don't, like, kids need human interaction, like kids are not robots, and you know, it becomes this big problem because, you know, now you're, you know, again, there are a slew of problems. But you also have these people that are making these sales pitches to get hooked up to this money. And all they have to do is convince populations of people, small communities or large communities, like this is going to be far, 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 far better. And the burden of proof is not lobbied against them, right? They come with the pitch.
Totally.
And unlike, like if I wanted to teach a new way of math, like you'd probably say, okay, well, like where did you bang that? Like, where did you hash this out? Like, where's the data around this? But you come forth with a computer program, an app or a system. People are like, this sounds good. Like, let's give this a shot. So it's not tried and true. It has promises of like perfecting everything. And these people are hyper motivated to tap into the trillions of dollars that we spend annually on education. And then all they have to do is convince people that aren't boots on the ground with their kids.
Yeah, I mean,
these are my concerns. I'm just wondering, like, what you think about that.
Totally, I think there's a reality to that, and I think what we have to do as the educators who hold the purse strings, right, like that sign the contracts, that agree to that, is do our due diligence. Education, we have action research where you're going to try something for a period of time to see if that's a relevant and a helpful intervention. And you look at the data: did this work? Did this not work? And why didn't it work? And then you try it again with you're tweaking the intervention.
Sure.
And so we explore different opportunities and different tools all the time, but we won't do it now without a trial period. Give us a 6-month trial period. Give us how many licenses can you give us?
Right.
First, so that we can try it. Because if it doesn't work, or if it's not interesting to the kiddos, if the kiddos are not engaging with it, then I'm not interested in it. Right. And that's the reality. It's not about me. It's not if they convince me that they're the best tool. If it doesn't work for my kids, then move along. And that's kind of the stance that I have. And so we have to try those out. I have a great curriculum person who runs the data. She gets the quotes. She's never did it before, and now she's doing it. And she's very good at what trial period are you going to give us so that we can see. And then we look at it and we actually authentically evaluate and look at it against the data that it's producing and say, is this helpful? And is this the bigger bang for our buck? Is there something else out there that could be cheaper that we can use, or can the intervention be created in-house, right? Like, and those are the things that we have to do, because we also are stewards of our taxpayers' money. I'm not out there trying to spend every dime that we get from our taxpayers. I need to be a good steward to that money, to the money, and make sure that what we're doing and what we're investing in is the most effective. And also, things change. The tools that we have now may not be the tools that we have later, because there may be better things out there. And so I'm certainly not afraid to engage and incorporate different things if it's going to be in the best interest of the students.
If I may, and again, thank you for that. If I may, what is it that about technology that could inspire or persuade or, cajole, convince, however, large public school systems to engage in these things with no proof of efficacy or like large studies behind it, right? Like I remember there was a conversation about Common Core back in the day where they're like, we're going to do like a Finland model or like blah, 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 and again, there were education. And again, whether you like Common Core or not, I didn't particularly enjoy it. Even if it was a good model in general, one of the biggest problems is parents didn't understand it. So if you have 30 kids or 25 kids in a kindergarten class, you actually have 26 teachers because you at least have one parent at home that understands how to do the stuff plus the teacher in the classroom. Totally. When you switch to a type of math or a type of methodology that parents don't understand, you reduce yourself down to one person that understands. And that's a huge problem, right? But you had educational experts saying, hey, look, this other country over here, they engage in this type of thing, whether it be like a play-based model or a, free, guide model, whatever it is. And we've studied this and we think this is what actually made that work. And we're trying to integrate this. Okay, great. No problem. No one is coming to the table saying, hey man, Finland started using this app and these were the results. Nobody's saying that. No one has said we have seen an increase in graduation by 20%. No one's saying we have an increase in literacy in third grade by like 5%. No one has academic quantitative values that are saying, hey, this shows efficacy either within, like in the district next door, in the state next door, in the country over there. No one has that. Yet we are being persuaded at scale to change our entire academic plan on a promise of betterment. Yet we've had incredible tech capacity for the last easily 10 years. Who's coming out as like, like, oh, that like Massachusetts did it. Like they integrated tech effectively. It's like nobody's coming out and saying that, right? Like, am I missing something about how things should be at least viewed to some degree?
Well, and I think there's a couple things there. One is I think the reality is we can't have those big sweeping proclamations because our kids aren't widgets, right? Kiddos in the community next to us, right? West Ada is just a couple, 25 miles away from my district, and those scores and the students' needs in that community are going to be significantly different than those in my community, and so we have to realize that there has to be some nuance. And I think that's where the teacher has to be involved. That's where the person has to be involved, is how do we use those and use that in a nuanced way to support the kiddos based on their experience. We have technology, but also we have to recognize, I have to recognize quite regularly is, I'm sure our kiddos have iPads and I send it home for them to do homework. But what if they don't have internet? And many of my kiddos don't have internet. They don't have access to internet. And so I have my own sense of privilege that I believe that people have Wi-Fi at home, and that's not a reality for all the students. So what do we do to support that? So we're not dealing with widgets. It's not apples to apples. And the reality is, back in the day, it's just at a bigger scale, but we used to have curriculum people come in from Pearson's and the other big groups that are coming and selling us the newest textbook, the newest supplement. So it's not different. It just, now there's, I guess, more expediency, because to order a bunch of textbooks, they're going to come in big boxes. I'm going to have to have a pallet jack to move it around, versus just downloading an app and having access to that. So there is a different scale, but it's not necessarily a new concept that we're pushing that.
Sure. And again, I don't think that this is the first industry to be like, hey man, let's tap into those public school funds. Like, for sure, that has been a thing for a long time. And I get that, like 100%. I think the difference is, if you have done, like, say, Matt's education curriculum has been utilized by your school district for the last 50 years, and Matt, the founder and salesman, I show up, I'm like, hey man, look, here's the deal. This curriculum's still solid 100%. What we've done is we've actually added these other tweaks to these different areas, and we actually have found that this has an improved efficacy of retention and these other, whatever it might be, right? And it also adds flexibility. We added some more challenge programs so you can actually challenge your kids a little bit more on the high end, and, blah, 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 all of these different things, like whatever I don't know what the sales pitch is, but like, you have that and you're like, okay, this is a person who's been in education for 50 years. And they're saying on the weight of their educational reputation that these things are valuable modifications to curriculum. One, I trusted the original curriculum because we still have it in our schools. And two, this person's not going to put their name on something shady, right? Okay, great. That's an experience that I presume you would kind of go through, at least in part. Some tech person shows up. They're not in education. They don't have this could be a startup that's been around 6 months. They could go out of business next year. They don't have a reputation they have to worry about. They're not in education. They don't have a reputation, and they make promises that everything is going to be great. And then, because of the expediency with rolling out, public school children become the guinea pigs. They become the input modeling for AI systems. Our children, when integrated in technology, somebody's collecting that data. And by the way, the salesperson will say, we just collect the data so we can make this the best possible. They're literally running education experiments off of public school kids, collecting that data. We don't know what information they have about our kids. We don't know what information they have about their personal identification. We don't know any of that stuff. They collect it. Like, Persons isn't coming back and like collecting data. There's like a thumb drive in the back of the textbook. They're like, pop it out, like, I got the data.
Yeah.
Like, that's fair. It is happening in these apps. So when we say, hey, yeah, we have people that we've always had academic salespeople, that's fine. But that's a physical person, right? That's a physical person. That's a company that they're working for. If somebody showed up that was like, hey man, check this out. I got the best math textbook ever. You're like, you do? You're like, yeah, I made it 6 months ago. They're like, wow, where did it come from? No, I'm not from ed. I study computer science. I just made this math curriculum. It's the best curriculum ever. Yeah. You'd be like, you'd laugh them out of the building. You're like, get the hell out of here, man. But that's effectively what we're doing with tech.
Yeah, I would say to a certain extent. I would say when I speak to different curriculum providers, they do hire educators that are helping kind of sell it. And I don't think there's any malfeasance in it. Well, it's a business, certainly, right?
Sure.
And the reality is the onus is on us as the educational leaders in our districts to do our due diligence, right? it's always a sales pitch, whether it's the textbook, whether it's the app, whether it's the people that want to fix the roof or update the
Right.
HVAC system, right? And it's our responsibility to go through that and engage in our due diligence. And again, I think that's where we have to look at the people that we're supporting, whether it's the teachers, having the teachers buy in, having the kiddos look at it, and we can sample the data, or excuse me, sample the curriculum or the app to see what works for them. But if I choose to do it, I won't speak globally. I will speak for myself. If I choose to do that without consulting or trying the app or whatever that experience is, then I don't think I'm doing my due diligence. And I think that's really where it's about, or what it's about is really what are the stakeholders what's the experience of the stakeholders? When I'm sitting in my office, in my superintendent office, just sitting there working on paperwork, I don't have to engage with that platform. It could be boring. It could be just not engaging, and
Right.
and if I spend all that money, then I'm not doing anything good necessarily, or at least I'm not maximizing the good that I can do.
Sure. And again, I understand. I don't think there's a big conspiracy amongst like superintendents in Idaho with like tech. I genuinely think there has been a sales pitch over the last 10 years and specifically over the last 5. And I think companies have promised the moon and the stars, and it's rolling out now. It's like, that's not, what I find interesting? When I was in elementary school, fun fact, Bill Clinton actually came to my high school in like the mid 90s because I grew up in like this real, kind of blue collar, lower end area. And they were like so excited about this tech lab that they had set up. He's like, it's going to be great. So here's Bill Clinton. And I was in like or middle school or something at the time. I missed it. I didn't get to meet the president. Anyway, the point is, I remember being in elementary school, they were really dumping a lot of money into tech into the area because the high school I went to was like 60% Hispanic, very minority immigrant population. They're like, we need to integrate technology to make all of this, essentially make all of this better, to equalize opportunities and whatnot. And it was funny because that was, if you had tech back then, like they were trying to get into our school, but if you had tech back then, it was like, wow, you're doing like, these schools are awesome. Like they got tech, they got computer labs. And now if you go like, what's the most expensive school in the area do? No tech. Like why? Well, because they have to invest in people. They have to invest in teachers, and the teachers are going to like, have these human interactions with kids. And, like it's such a flip. We used to all think tech was going to be the answer. And by the way, it wasn't the answer at the high school I went to at all. The school has continued to get worse as more tech has been poured into it. But again, we used to be that the lower end schools were struggling to get tech and the higher end schools had the tech. And now it's completely reversed. It's like, what a wild thing. So again, I understand this paradigm of trying to engage with technology and education has been something for a long time, but and there is a wonderful place for it. Absolutely. As a tool.
Absolutely. I think many of us, I would love to find it too. We want that quick fix, right? What can I purchase today that will make sure that my students have the best outcomes, right? Like that actually sounds very altruistic if that's the way we're looking at it, is I'm trying to find the best tools so that my kiddos get all that they deserve to have. And so that's the constant struggle. I'm always looking at curriculum. I'm always looking at tools and a variety of things. And I'm always listening to those sales pitches. And it sounds nice because my North Star with this is this going to help my kids? Are they going to be better off because of this? But I also recognize there's not going to be, at least not yet, maybe at some point, but not yet. I have not seen that magic solution, that magic application or tool or whatever it may be that says this is what's going to make sure that your kids read at grade level. That our world's certainly evolving, but what I really want our kids to have, my kids in my district, is do they have the critical thinking capacity to digest and synthesize information that's just being thrown at them nonstop? And so that's really when I fundamentally kind of sit back and think about what's my role. I want my kids to be able to read effectively. I want my kids to be able to think critically. I want my kids to be able to navigate the systems that are going to be before them that we don't even know yet. There's stuff that's certainly going to be in their lifetime that we can't even fathom at the moment. But I want them to have the foundational skills to be able to critically evaluate information, just so that they're good users and just good people and have the capacity to do whatever they want within their, concept of their value structure of their own and their families.
Yeah. A question for you. What do you guys do? I was just having this hilarious conversation with this guy, Tyler Kelly, and he's part of the he's a chairman of, I think, like the Idaho Young Republicans Club or something. And we were talking about age and generational differences. And he's like, dude, the boomers, it's like they have like a negative capacity to be discriminatory with information online. Like they can't help it. Whereas you get, like a 16 or 17 or 18 or like me, like I'm in my early 40s. It's like, I'm hyper skeptical. Anything I see online, come on, man. And I'll even, if it's something that's like, maybe I squint, I'm like, maybe it's like, fine, but I'll try to triangulate and get like 3 or 4 different sources. But like the boomers, they just like whatever's there. What are you guys doing, if I may ask, is developing a large scale discerning capacity with online information, something that you guys weave in? Like, and by the way, this is also not new. I remember back when I was in like college and high school, they were like, okay, but like not all websites are true. And it was like, really? And like, yeah, you can't just cite a website. And you're like, okay, great. But that's like, I remember when I learned about Google, like they were like, just Google. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying right now. Anyway, but what do you guys do, if anything, to help kind of start that discerning capacity?
Sure. I think it just starts with some of the fundamentals of reading, right? We have to, one, be able to ensure that the kiddos can read, right? That they're not relying on YouTube videos or just TikToks, those types of information. And then moreover, as we progress through that, we're looking at the teachers, particularly in the high school, are having conversations at what's the source? You wrote this paper, and this was your source. Why did you choose this? It's a .com, and really kind of synthesizing that information of where are you going to get quality information? What happens when your information is in contrast to other information that you collected, and how are you going to decide what's what? And so it's really just having the kiddos that you use the word squint, kind of squint and really look at things in a critical manner, right? And I think that's what we really need to do. I think that's certainly what we need to do as a community, is just be critical of information, not necessarily of people, but be discerning, try to discern the information and really understand just the reason behind it, and understand that, just that there could be bias in the information, and that if you choose to believe that, or if you choose to follow that you understand where it's originating, and then, by all means.
I actually really I spoke with Superintendent Critchfield about this just briefly. I was like, I would love to help teach courses on how to make persuasive social media posts that are complete junk, and just break it down. It's like, listen, this is the 6 layers of, like, a friend of mine sent me something last night, and that was ridiculous. It was this talking head video about this guy saying we should eliminate the 19th Amendment. I believe that's women's right to vote, right? And the video goes into like, women are responsible for, who's the dude who got elected in New York?
Oh,
Mondami. They're like, women are like, because they're compassionate or whatever. It's this ridiculous thing. First off, I'm like, I don't even know if the thing I'm looking at is a human being. Okay. So like, this could totally just be like an AI generated dude. I've never seen this guy before. It's not a news broadcast. Like, it's a random thing, right? So the first layer is you have this visual, okay, of this guy that looks like a human, but I don't even know if he's a human. So that's one layer of media. Second, it's what he's saying, right? Which is both the audio and the actual words. So those 2 separate layers of stuff. So like, it sounds pretty good, and there's a contextual basis to it where, but even that, the audio, the voice could actually be AI. And if I just go to Chatty G, I'm like, hey man, I'm going to make a social media clip that's 45 seconds all about like the reason women should not have the right to vote. And I want you to make the most, based on contemporary problems and accusatory things, why women should not have a vote, because they're too emotional or because whatever. Chatty G will spit something out, and I just upload that onto a platform. And then there were, so you have the video, you have the voice, then you have the context, 3 layers of media so far. Then you have contemporary news clippings, those get woven in. Then you have music in the background, that's layer 4 and 5. So you have up to, generally it's right around 5 or at most 6 layers of media that you're like, these could all be fake, and they're all being thrown at you in an attempt and an appeal to emotion. That's another one. And you get, deeper into the layers of like Aristotle's persuasion, right? But like, you have all of these things. It's like, guys, you could see something like this, and what you really have to realize is this isn't even good food. It's just loaded with sugar, fat, and salt. And that's it. And I know it seems tasty or like catches your attention, but this is really bad for you because it's loaded with sugar, fat, and salt, right? Like that's what these things are. And it's all like fake food. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
it's like you probably just blacked out, but like, I was like,
no, but I think that's part of the reality of why some of the fundamental things of education are probably more important now than they are before, because an individual has to be able to evaluate that information just like you described and understand, is this information valuable? Is it relevant to me and my values? But, and if they want to land there, great, but at least they know that they're not being manipulated in that process, right? I want my students, everybody that I work with, to not be manipulated to their convictions, right? If their values should guide them to their convictions, their experiences, whatever that may be, but to be forcefully manipulated, just like you described, is, there's certainly nefarious, intentions.
1,000%.
And so, and I think that's where we had to get back to those fundamentals. I want my kids to read. I want my kids to be able to comprehend the information. It's different to be able to read. I can sound out the words, but do I understand what those words mean? Am I overly relying on, can I read the words and evaluate that and not have that emotional connection, because there's music on this post, or, flashy videos and those types of things. And anymore, you're right. There's deep fakes. There's things like that all over social media. We just went through an election season. Certainly there was lots of information out there. And, just to be good citizens, we need to be able to distill all that information to our own value systems.
Yeah, man, for sure. Listen, I know it's a working day, but I will leave you with this. I would like to be clear. I think tech has a great place in education. In fact, recently, I guess it's like 4 or 5 months ago now, I started a American nuclear series. Every Monday, another American nuclear podcast comes out. I got a guy, Richard McPherson, who's like in his 80s. He started out as a nuke in the Navy, and he was hanging out in like nuclear submarines and, like the 60s. Wild stuff, right? And he's one of the foremost authorities on nuclear energy in the United States. He happens to live 10 minutes away randomly, right? He and I get connected, and I don't know anything about nuclear energy. At the time when we get connected, I get super excited about it. He comes in, we have this great first, second podcast. I have 1,000 questions, 1,000. And I'm like, and I don't want to call him because he's like, I don't want to bother him. And I also know how dumb the questions are I have. I'm like, I know this is it's painful. It's so fundamental. So I go on the Chatty G. I'm like, explain nuclear fission to me. Like, what's an isotope, right? Like, I was not a huge fan of chemistry. I like physics way more. And I was like, break all of these down. And man, I was on it for like 45 minutes. We got all the way to like molten salt nuclear fuels with like uranium infusion in them, like all these different things. I'm like, oh, I got it. Okay, great. Like, and again, I'm not like I got it, but I was like, oh, okay. Like, I understand the fundamentals of what's happening now. I was able to do that because of Chatty G. Okay. But I was also able to not get sucked down a rabbit hole of Instagram or TikTok or everything else, as I had this tool in my hand. I had enough knowledge and discipline to know that I need to use it as a tool. And it does have the most distracting, attention hijacking mechanisms the world has ever known on it. Nothing rivals this thing. And all of the people that made these apps want nothing more than one more second from me. Yep. And again, like, it is an incredible thing, but like, golly, man, it is hard to put it in the hands of young people and have them use it the way you always want them to use it.
Yeah. And I guess I just will end by saying, and I think that's why it's important to have the teacher, that education is a human experience. Learning is a human experience. And so the process of learning these things need to be humanized. And certainly we can use apps. Certainly we can use technology for a variety of things. And certainly we should, right? I believe that it has to be incorporated in some fashion, and do it in a purposeful manner. Everything in teaching should be purposeful. Everything to the anchor posters that you have on the wall, to which is, for those that don't know, it's just like the information that that students would use to for whatever topic you're teaching, to the resources that you're providing them physically. You need to be as strategic and as purposeful in selecting those items as you do with as you should with apps or with other programs. And so certainly let's embrace technology, but let's embrace it as a tool. It's not the teacher, it's the tool. And really know that our kiddos need that connection for a variety of reasons, even if it's just the soft skills, right? Of how do we engage and demonstrate the ability to convince somebody else, or share your opinion on a matter, or share your learning in a different in a practical manner. And so technology is great. Teachers are the most important thing in the student's education system. And I certainly support that, and certainly support technology at the same time.
Yeah. Alex, thank you for coming in today,
Absolutely.
man. I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise.
It's awesome to hear people struggling with this.
Totally.
Okay. And I know the struggle is painful, but it's really disheartening when I meet educators. They're like, oh, tech is great. I'm like, how do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for whom? For the kindergartner? For the senior in high school? For the person who's studying history, or the person who's studying computer science? Like, tech is great for whom and how? And this is something that we need education leaders being like, hey, man, it's like the scene from Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Totally.
I want to show who's coming with.
Yep.
Like, I want people to hold tech companies accountable, to show us that they should have access to our children, that our children are not just these ongoing experiments that they have
Absolutely.
Absolutely not. Taking our tax dollars, taking our kids' attention away. And by the way, the startup brings a piece of tech in, it doesn't work, they go bankrupt. They're like, sorry guys, yeah, well, my kid just lost 3 years of education that could have been valuable, and now they have a tech addiction or whatever it might be. So again, I'm not all doom and gloom, but like, man, I so appreciate that you're struggling with this, and that, the Wilder School District is coming after it. So God bless you, sir. Thank you for coming on. Let's do it again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.